Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers and sisters. Have you ever felt a loss so deep that even the simplest moments suddenly feel heavier? When you sit alone, your mind drifts to what you loved, what you prayed for, what you thought would stay forever. You move through your day, but a quiet ache follows you everywhere, an ache only your heart understands. And in that hidden place inside you, a silent question rises. Will my heart ever feel whole again? Today, I want to share with you a surah that has guided countless hearts out of emotional darkness. A surah that, when recited for 7 sincere days, begins to soften the pain you thought would never ease. Stay with me, because this might be the reminder your heart has been waiting for. When the heart breaks quietly inside, loss has a way of changing a person in ways the world will never fully understand. You can be surrounded by people, yet feel a quiet emptiness that no conversation can fill. You wake up in the morning hoping the heaviness will fade, but the heart still carries the same weight. It is the kind of pain that does not shout. It whispers in the background of every thought, reminding you of what once brought comfort, joy, or meaning. Some losses feel like they erase a whole chapter of your life in a single moment. A person you cherished is no longer there. A dream you held onto with both hands suddenly slips away. A relationship you thought would last forever ends without warning. Even when you try to distract yourself, a memory appears and pulls your heart back into a space you thought you had already healed from. People around you might see you functioning normally, going to work, smiling politely, speaking calmly, but deep inside, the heart sits in silence, trying to make sense of the emptiness left behind. You begin to question yourself, wondering if you will ever feel whole again. You wonder if you will ever trust life again, or if every step forward will always feel like walking with a missing piece. What many forget is that the heart is not weak because it feels deeply. It feels deeply because it was created with the capacity to love, to attach, to hope, and to dream. And when something meaningful leaves, the heart naturally struggles to adjust. It tries to protect itself from further hurt, yet it still longs for peace, clarity, and comfort. In these moments of internal confusion, there is often a quiet turning point, not a dramatic one, but a subtle shift inside the soul, where you begin to realize that healing does not start from the outside. It begins within, slowly, gently, through reminders that reach you exactly when you need them. Loss does not mean your story is collapsing. It means your story is being rewritten with wisdom you may not yet see. And before any new chapter begins, the heart needs a space to breathe, to reflect, and to reconnect with the one who has always carried you through every unseen moment. That is where the journey of healing truly begins. The surah that was sent to lift a heavy heart. When a person loses something they cherished, the world around them continues to move, but their heart slows down in ways others cannot see. The mind becomes a battlefield of memories, questions, and silent prayers. At times like this, people often search for guidance that speaks directly to their pain, guidance that understands heartbreak not as weakness, but as a human experience that shapes the soul. This is why Surah Yusuf chapter 12 holds a unique place in the hearts of those who are grieving. It is not just a narrative, it is the most detailed story in the entire scripture, revealed to bring comfort during moments of intense emotional turmoil. This surah teaches that even the most painful chapters of life are written with wisdom, even when the heart struggles to understand. The story of Yusuf begins with profound loss. Separated from his father, betrayed by the people who should have protected him, thrown into hardship after hardship, and left alone in unfamiliar places. His journey reflects the experiences of every person who has lost something meaningful. He did not lose just a home or a family. He lost a sense of belonging, safety, and stability. Yet, throughout the surah, the message is clear. A heart that remains sincere will never be abandoned. Many people who read Surah Yusuf during moments of pain realize something unexpected. The story does not rush to the happy ending. It walks slowly through every difficulty, every misunderstanding, every moment of waiting. And in this slow unfolding, the heart begins to understand that healing does not happen overnight. It happens gradually through patience, trust, and the awareness that what feels shattered today may be the foundation for something far greater tomorrow. This surah teaches that loss does not define your story, it prepares your story. Yusuf endured betrayal, loneliness, separation and injustice, yet every hardship was quietly guiding him toward a future that held more honor, love and stability than he ever imagined. His journey shows that the path to healing often passes through moments that seem impossible to survive. Yet those moments are actually shaping the heart for something higher. When someone recites Surah Yusuf for 7 days with reflection, they begin to notice subtle changes inside themselves. They see their heart break through a new lens. They realize that their pain is not a punishment, but a transition. They understand that even when people abandon you, your story is still being written with care. And they discover that the strength they gain through patience becomes a treasure they carry for the rest of their lives. Surah Yusuf teaches that the one who restored him after every loss can restore you as well. The one who guided him through every dark valley can guide you through your silent struggles. And the one who reunited him with everything he once loved can bring peace into your life in ways you cannot yet see. Why 7 days can quietly transform a broken heart? When people hear the idea of reciting a surah for 7 days, they sometimes wonder if 7 days are enough to change anything. But the truth is, transformation does not begin with time, it begins with intention. 7 days is simply the space you give your heart to breathe, to slow down and to reconnect with meaning after carrying a weight it was never meant to hold alone. The human heart is shaped by repetition. Whatever you repeatedly focus on begins to settle inside you. If you repeat fear, fear grows. If you repeat painful memories, the memories become heavier. But if you repeat a message of hope, trust and healing, like the message of Surah Yusuf, the heart slowly begins to rewrite its emotional script. Over 7 days, your mind shifts from constantly replaying what you lost to finally absorbing the wisdom behind the loss. Most people underestimate how deeply their pain settles. When you lose something or someone you love, your heart does not break in one place, it breaks in layers. There is the layer of shock, then the layer of confusion, then the layer of longing, and finally the layer where you begin to question whether you will ever feel whole again. Healing must touch every one of these layers, slowly, steadily, and gently. This is where the 7-day practice becomes powerful. For 7 days you step out of the noise and enter a space where your soul can hear what it has been trying to tell you, that your story is not collapsing, it is unfolding. That your loss is not the end, it is a turning point. That even though you cannot see the full picture, the one who designed your life has already planned the chapter that comes after your pain. Surah Yusuf is not a quick remedy, it is a mirror. It shows you that even the most painful moments are carrying you toward a better place. When you recite it over 7 days, your heart slowly begins to accept the idea that difficulty does not erase your worth. It teaches you to hold patience not as a burden, but as a path to something greater. It reminds you that every separation, every disappointment, and every unanswered question has purpose, even when the purpose feels hidden. By the 3rd or 4th day, many people begin to experience a subtle shift. Their thoughts become calmer. The pressure in their chest feels lighter. They stop blaming themselves for things they could not control. They realize that the story of Yusuf was not a story of loss. It was a story of preparation. With every repeated recitation, the heart learns to trust again, not because the past suddenly becomes clear, but because the future begins to feel possible. 7 days is not about counting. It is about consistency. It is about showing your heart that you are ready to rebuild step by step, breath by breath. It is about letting the message of Surah Yusuf sink into the deepest parts of your grief until you begin to feel the strength that was always there but hidden beneath the weight of your emotions. And by the 7th day, something remarkable often happens. You may still remember what you lost, but the pain no longer controls you. You may still feel sadness, but it does not drown you. You look at your reflection and see someone who has endured, someone who is still standing, someone who is slowly being guided toward a chapter written with mercy, wisdom, and restoration. The 7 days do not fix everything around you. They begin fixing everything within you. How Surah Yusuf rewrites the way you understand loss. One of the most powerful gifts of Surah Yusuf is that it gently changes the way a person interprets their own pain. It does not simply comfort the heart, it reshapes the entire meaning of loss. Most people look at what they lost and think, my life is moving backwards. But Surah Yusuf teaches the exact opposite. It shows that what feels like a setback is often the doorway to the greatest turning point of your life. The story itself begins with a loss that would break any heart. Yusuf is taken from the person who loved him the most. He is separated from everything familiar, everything safe, everything that gave him comfort. From the outside, this looks like tragedy. But the surah slowly reveals that what appears to be a painful separation is actually the beginning of a journey leading him toward honor, wisdom and responsibility far greater than he could ever imagine. This surah teaches that loss is not a sign that your life is falling apart. It is a sign that your life is being rearranged with purpose. Every door that closed, every person who left, every dream that seemed to disappear, all of it may be part of a bigger design that you cannot see right now. And sometimes the very things you cry over today are the things you will one day thank your Creator for, because they freed you from chapters that could not carry the weight of your future. Surah Yusuf also teaches that emotional pain is not a result of weakness. Even a heart chosen for greatness can experience deep sadness. The father of Yusuf spent years grieving the separation from his beloved son, yet he remained patient and trusting even when the situation looked hopeless. His journey teaches that it is possible to carry sorrow and faith at the same time. You do not need to pretend your heart is not hurting in order to remain connected to the one who brings healing. Another lesson Surah Yusuf reveals is that everything you lose in life is held by a wisdom far beyond your own. Yusuf was placed in situations that made no sense in the moment: a dark well, a foreign land, false accusations, years of isolation. And yet every step, even the painful ones, were leading him toward a future that required exactly those experiences. Without the well, he would not reach the palace. Without the separation, he would not gain the strength and insight that defined his character. Without the trials, he would not rise to a position that allowed him to save nations and reunite with those he loved. In the same way, the pain you are carrying may be building something inside you: patience, clarity, courage, empathy, resilience, qualities you would never have developed without walking through what you walked through. Sometimes the loss is not removing something from your life, it is preparing space for something better, something more stable, something more aligned with who you are becoming. Surah Yusuf teaches the heart that timing is everything. Yusuf waited years for answers, yet his story did not end in sadness, it ended in restoration, honor and reunion. This reminds you that your own story is also unfolding in stages. Just because you cannot see the ending does not mean your ending is dark. Just because something valuable left your life does not mean your future will be empty. The plan is still moving, even on days when you feel stuck. Most importantly, Surah Yusuf shows that the one who allows loss is the same. One who promises that every hardship carries ease, even if that ease arrives quietly and slowly. What you perceive as the end may actually be the beginning of a chapter written with more wisdom and mercy than all the chapters before it. If you allow the surah to settle in your heart, you begin to see your pain differently, not as a burden that destroys you, but as a turning point that leads you towards something meant for your soul. Loss becomes not a punishment, but a transition, a place where your old chapter meets the doorway to your new one. How to begin the 7-day healing practice with Surah Yusuf? When a person carries pain inside the heart, they often search for something that can lift the weight quickly. But emotional wounds do not heal through pressure. They heal through gentleness, consistency and reflection. This is why a 7-day practice with Surah Yusuf becomes more than just recitation. It becomes a journey of returning to yourself, step by step, in the presence of guidance that understands your struggle. Before beginning the practice, it is important to create a small space of calm. It does not need to be perfect or quiet or beautifully arranged. It simply needs to be a place where you can sit with your emotions without judgment. Some people choose a corner of their room, some choose a spot near a window. Others choose a place where their heart feels a little lighter. What matters is that you show up sincerely, because sincerity becomes the key that opens the door to healing. For 7 days, choose a time when your mind is less rushed. For some, this is early morning when the world is still silent. For others, it is evening when the day's noise begins to settle. Sit with Surah Yusuf and read it slowly, not to finish quickly, but to allow each part of the story to reach the places within you that are still hurting. This surah is not meant to be rushed. It is meant to be absorbed. It is meant to be felt. As you read, imagine the journey unfolding. Imagine the uncertainty, the loneliness, the betrayal, the waiting, and then the eventual restoration. You will notice something remarkable. Your heart begins to see its own reflection in Yusuf's path. You will see that grief does not make you weak. Waiting does not mean your life is paused. And hardship does not mean you have been forgotten. This surah teaches that the most meaningful transformations often happen in silence, away from the eyes of the world, exactly where your heart is right now. During these 7 days, do not focus on how much pain you can remove. Instead, focus on how much truth you can allow into your heart. Some people find themselves crying on certain days, not out of despair, but because the surah gently touches parts of the soul they have ignored for too long. Others feel a sense of calm slowly settling in. Some feel a rise in clarity, as if the confusion they carried for months begins to loosen its grip. The goal of the 7-day practice is not to erase memories. It is to reorganize them in a way that brings peace instead of pain. It is to remind your heart that although something was taken from you, nothing was taken without purpose. It is to help you understand that healing is not a moment, it is a movement. It is a process that begins the moment you stop fighting your past and start trusting that your story still holds beauty ahead. Each day, after completing your recitation, spend a few quiet moments thinking about one lesson from the story that resonates with your current pain. Maybe it is the patience of Yusuf's father, who held hope even when everyone told him to give up. Maybe it is the strength of Yusuf, who remained upright even when life pushed him into darkness. Maybe it is the realization that every chapter of hardship was secretly shaping him for something extraordinary. End each session with a small reflection, even if it is only one sentence in your heart. I am healing. I am learning. I am growing. I am being guided. Simple thoughts can become powerful companions when your heart feels alone. By the 5th or 6th day, many people begin to feel a shift, not because their circumstances suddenly changed, but because their heart is no longer resisting the reality of life. It begins to accept that the story is unfolding exactly as it needs to. It begins to trust that what is meant for you will find you, and what left your life left for a reason you may not understand yet. This 7-day practice becomes a way of telling your heart, you deserve peace again. You deserve clarity again. You deserve to move forward without carrying yesterday's wounds into tomorrow. And slowly the heart listens. The quiet emotional transformation that begins inside you. As the days of this 7-day journey unfold, something subtle yet powerful begins to happen within the heart. A transformation that cannot always be described in words, but can definitely be felt. It does not arrive suddenly, and it does not announce itself loudly. It begins quietly, almost unnoticed, like the way dawn slowly replaces the night. And before you realize it, parts of you that were once heavy begin to rise again. For so long, your emotions may have been tangled in confusion, wondering why things happened the way they did, replaying moments you would change if you could, blaming yourself for outcomes that were never in your control. These thoughts drain the heart, making healing feel impossible. But as you sit with Surah Yusuf day after day, something inside you starts to untangle. You begin to see your past not as a series of losses, but as a series of lessons. By this stage of the practice, many people notice that their mind begins to settle. The same memories that once caused sharp pain now feel softer, as if the edges of those moments are being smoothed by understanding. The heart stops fighting reality and begins to breathe with acceptance. Not because the loss hurt any less, but because you finally understand that your story is still moving forward, even if life changed direction unexpectedly. Another transformation takes place in the way you see yourself. Loss has a way of making a person feel small, forgotten, or unworthy. But the story of Yusuf teaches that a person can go through betrayal, abandonment, and injustice, yet still remain noble in the eyes of the one who sees their truth. As you recite the surah, the same understanding settles into your heart. You realize that your worth is not defined by who stayed or who left. It is defined by your sincerity, your patience, your resilience, and your connection to the one who guides all hearts. Slowly, your emotional strength begins to return. You begin to trust yourself again. You begin to believe that you can rebuild, even if the path ahead is unfamiliar. You discover a courage that was quietly growing beneath your pain. And for the first time in a long time, you begin to imagine a future without feeling overwhelmed. The transformation is not only emotional, it is spiritual. Surah Yusuf teaches that timing plays a role in everything. What seemed delayed was not denial, it was preparation. What seemed taken away was not cruelty, it was protection. What broke you was not meant to end you, it was meant to rebuild you with depth and wisdom. As this understanding grows inside your heart, the bitterness begins to dissolve. You stop questioning why things happened and start trusting that everything unfolded exactly as it needed to. By the sixth day, a new type of clarity often appears. Your heart becomes more aware of the present moment instead of remaining chained to the past. You begin noticing blessings you previously overlooked. You respond to challenges with greater calm. And perhaps the most beautiful transformation of all, you feel a sense of companionship from the one who has carried you through every unseen moment of your journey. This companionship makes the heart stronger than any pain it has carried. It makes healing possible even when circumstances remain unchanged. And it teaches you that true strength is not the absence of sadness. It is the ability to stand with sadness while still believing that peace is on its way. The change within you is not dramatic or loud. It is gentle, patient, steady, just like the surah you have been reciting. And this transformation prepares you for the final stage of the journey, where the heart begins to look forward again with hope instead of backward with sorrow. When the heart finally understands why it had to break before it could rise, by the time a person reaches the final day of this 7-day journey with Surah Yusuf, something remarkable begins to unfold, not in the world around them, but within the depths of their own heart. It is as if the soul has been slowly clearing away the dust that settled during months of grief, fear, and confusion. And now, on this final stretch, the heart begins to see what pain tried to hide. One of the most powerful realizations that emerges is that the heart did not break because it was weak. It broke because it was growing. Growth rarely arrives wrapped in comfort. It often comes through disruption, the kind that forces you to pause, reflect, and rebuild yourself with more strength and wisdom than before. Surah Yusuf teaches that every separation, every disappointment, and every shift in your life has a purpose, even when your emotions cannot yet grasp it. As the story of Yusuf reaches its conclusion, something profound becomes clear. Everything that once appeared to be working against him was actually guiding him toward a future he could never have reached without the pain. Without the well, he would not have entered the palace. Without the betrayal, he would not have discovered his inner strength. Without the isolation, he would not have grown into the person capable of leading with clarity, compassion, and wisdom. The pain was never a mistake. It was preparation. This is where the heart of the listener begins to awaken. You start to understand that what you lost did not leave your life to punish you. It left to shape you. The person you are becoming required a version of strength, patience, and insight that could only grow through walking this difficult path. And although the journey has been heavy, you begin to realize that the weight was building a new foundation beneath your feet, a foundation that will support the blessings waiting for you ahead. By the final day of this practice, many people notice that they can finally breathe differently. The tightness that once lived in their chest loosens. The thoughts that once haunted them lose power. The memories that once felt sharp now feel softer, as if wrapped in understanding. You do not forget what happened, but it no longer controls every corner of your mind. It no longer defines your worth or your future. It becomes a chapter meaningful, painful, but complete. Another profound shift happens in your relationship with timing. Surah Yusuf teaches that the most beautiful chapters of life rarely arrive when we expect them. They unfold precisely when we are ready emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. The long waiting period Yusuf endured was not wasted time. It was sacred time, shaping him into someone capable of carrying the blessings that were waiting for him. In your own life, the waiting you experienced after your loss may feel unbearable. You may have wondered why relief didn't